The vastness of space was quiet, but Lieutenant Marcus Kane never found it peaceful. There was always something lurking in the shadows of the stars. An anomaly, a distress signal, or sometimes the silence of something long dead. This time, it was a faint distress beacon picked up by the Eclipse, his small exploratory vessel. Unknown origin. The ship's AI, Helios, reported in its usual calm voice. Signal strength is weak, likely from an older technology. Marcus leaned forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the holographic display. A tiny, blinking dot marked the source of the beacon, floating aimlessly on the edge of an asteroid belt. "Plot a course," he ordered. As the ship moved closer, the object came into view on the main screen. It was a battered alien craft, small and almost skeletal, its outer hull scorched and riddled with holes. No signs of life. "Atmosphere inside the ship is unstable," Helios continued. "Life support systems are failing." Marcus sighed, strapping on his helmet. "I'm going in." Recommendation: wait for backup. "This situation is high risk," Helios advised. Marcus smirked, grabbing his portable scanner. "When has that ever stopped me?" The airlock hissed open, and Marcus stepped into the derelict ship. It was dark, cold, and eerily quiet. His flashlight swept across the narrow corridor, illuminating broken panels and loose wires. The ship felt ancient, yet its design was unlike anything Marcus had seen before. Organic curves mixed with sharp metallic edges. The scanner beeped, detecting faint life signs ahead. Marcus followed the signal to a small chamber. His breath caught when he saw her. A figure lay slumped against the wall, her body frail and covered in intricate, shimmering patterns that seemed to glow faintly even in the dim light. She was tall and slender, with elongated limbs and a face framed by delicate tendrils. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin looked unnaturally pale, almost translucent. "Helios, I found someone," Marcus whispered, crouching beside her. "Life signs are critical," Helios replied. "Species unknown. Immediate medical attention required." Marcus hesitated. He had no idea how to help her. Human medicine was unlikely to work, and moving her might worsen her condition. But leaving her here meant certain death. "Do we have anything on her species in the database?" Marcus asked, his voice tight with urgency. "Negative. Genetic markers are completely unclassified," Helios said. "However, her biochemistry suggests partial compatibility with human systems. Emergency stabilization may be possible with modified protocols." Marcus stared at her face. Even in this weakened state, she looked otherworldly, like something out of a dream. Her eyelids fluttered, and for a moment, her eyes opened, large, iridescent, and filled with fear. "It's okay," Marcus said softly, not sure if she could understand him. "I'm here to help." He gently lifted her into his arms, her body unnaturally light, and carried her back to the Eclipse. Back on the ship, Marcus laid her on the medical bed as Helios activated the diagnostic systems. The display filled with incomprehensible data about her physiology, most of which Marcus couldn't make sense of. "She's deteriorating rapidly," Helios said. "Immediate action is required." "What kind of action?" Marcus asked, his voice rising. "Human blood transfusion may stabilize her condition," Helios said after a pause. "Her blood contains compounds that are failing to regenerate due to her injuries. Your blood's cellular structure has a chance to compensate." Marcus froze. "You're suggesting I give her my blood?" "Yes. However, there is no guarantee it will work, and it poses significant risk to both individuals," Helios admitted. Marcus looked at the alien woman. Her breathing was growing fainter by the second. He didn't know anything about her, who she was, where she came from, or even if she was dangerous. But he couldn't just let her die. "Do it," Marcus said firmly. "Understood," Helios replied. Preparing procedure. As the machine worked, Marcus sat by her side, watching as his blood was transferred into her fragile veins. For a moment, Nothing happened. Then her breathing steadied, and the glow on her skin brightened slightly. She opened her eyes again, meeting his gaze. This time, there was no fear, only gratitude. "You're going to be okay," Marcus said, though he wasn't sure if it was true. Her lips moved, forming a single unfamiliar word before she drifted back into unconsciousness. "What did she say?" Marcus asked Helios. "Translation unclear," Helios replied. "It appears to be a term of deep respect or gratitude in her language." Marcus leaned back, exhaustion washing over him. He didn't know what he'd just gotten himself into, but one thing was certain: this encounter was only the beginning. The faint hum of the Eclipse's systems filled the quiet as Marcus Kane sat in the med bay, watching over the alien woman. Her delicate, shimmering skin now had a faint glow, a sign that the transfusion was working. Marcus felt an odd mix of relief and unease. He'd saved her life. For now. But at what cost? "Helios," Marcus called, his voice echoing in the small room. "Status update on her condition." The AI's voice responded promptly. "Her vitals are stabilizing, but she remains unconscious. Cellular activity has increased, suggesting partial adaptation to human blood." "Partial?" Marcus frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. The faint ache in his arm from the transfusion lingered. "Her physiology is highly complex," Helios explained. "While your blood has provided immediate support, her body is still undergoing significant stress. Recovery is uncertain without further intervention." Marcus sighed, running a hand through his short, dark hair. "We don't have time for uncertainty." He stood and approached the med bed, leaning down to get a closer look at her. Her chest rose and fell steadily now, but her expression, if he could even read it, seemed strained, as though she was caught in a battle within herself. "Who are you?" Marcus muttered, as though the unconscious woman could answer. Hours passed, and Marcus couldn't shake the strange sensation growing inside him. It wasn't just exhaustion from the procedure. His senses felt sharper, his mind more alert. Colors seemed brighter, and sounds more vivid. It was as if something inside him had changed. Helios interrupted his thoughts. "Lieutenant Kane, I am detecting an anomaly in your biometrics." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Anomaly? What kind of anomaly?" "Your blood chemistry has shifted slightly," Helios replied. "It appears there is a residual exchange of compounds between you and the alien subject." Marcus stiffened. "Residual exchange? Are you saying her blood is affecting me?" "Affirmative. However, the effects are minimal and non-lethal. Further observation is required." Marcus shook his head, pacing the room. He'd expected risks when he agreed to the transfusion, but this was uncharted territory. What if the changes weren't minimal? What if they were irreversible? Before he could dwell further, a soft sound caught his attention. A faint, melodic hum. He turned sharply to see her, the alien woman, stirring on the med bed. Her eyes fluttered open, their iridescent glow meeting his gaze. She tried to sit up, but her strength failed her. Marcus stepped forward, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "Easy, you're safe." Her gaze fixed on him, and for a moment there was silence. Then she spoke, her voice weak but carrying an ethereal quality. The words were unintelligible, but there was a pleading tone to them. "Helios, can you translate that?" Marcus asked. "Processing," the AI responded. After a moment, it said, "Her language is partially decipherable. She is asking, 'Why did you help me?'" Marcus hesitated, caught off guard by the question. He sat down beside her, choosing his words carefully. "You needed help. I couldn't just leave you to die." Her gaze softened, and she nodded slowly, as though understanding. She placed a hand on her chest, then on his, and murmured another word. "Translation: life debt," Helios said, "a concept tied to her species' culture. It signifies a profound obligation to someone who saves their life." Marcus held up a hand. "Hey, no debt. You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would have done." She tilted her head, clearly not comprehending his dismissal. Instead, she closed her eyes, as if focusing on something. Marcus's vision blurred for a split second, and then it came, a flood of images, not his own. A world with skies of liquid gold, spires of crystalline light rising into the heavens, and her standing amidst a group of beings like her, their glowing forms radiating unity. Then came fire and destruction, alien ships descending from the sky, and a desperate flight through the stars. Marcus stumbled back, gripping the edge of the med bay counter. What was that? Telepathic link detected, Helios said calmly. It appears the transfusion has established a temporary psychic connection between you and the subject. Marcus's breathing quickened as he tried to process what had just happened. He looked at her, realizing that her eyes were locked on his, her expression heavy with sorrow. That was your home, he said softly. It's gone, isn't it? She nodded, and a tear slid down her cheek. Marcus's heart clenched. Whoever she was, she'd lost everything. And now she was alone, stranded in a galaxy that probably wouldn't welcome her. He reached out, hesitating for only a moment before placing a reassuring hand on her arm. You're not alone anymore. We'll figure this out together. Her gaze lingered on him, and for the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. As Marcus left the med bay to check the ship's systems, he couldn't shake the feeling that his choice to save her had set something much larger into motion. Whatever bond they now shared, it wasn't just about blood. It was about survival, trust, and something far greater than himself. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning of their journey. Days passed aboard the Eclipse, and Lieutenant Marcus Kane found himself deeply invested in the recovery of the alien woman he had saved. She had been given the name Saranthea, a name he learned through their psychic connection. It felt strange to him, but it also felt right. Her presence filled the ship with an energy he had never experienced before. As Saranthea regained her strength, she began to explore the ship. Marcus watched her with fascination. Her movements were graceful, and the way she touched things, curious yet careful, made him realize how different they were. She seemed to have a natural ability to understand the ship's technology, even though it was all foreign to her. One evening, they sat together in the ship's common area, a small space with a view of the stars. The endless darkness outside was dotted with countless points of light, and it reminded Marcus of how vast the universe truly was. "Do you miss it?" he asked, breaking the silence. Saranthea looked out at the stars, her expression distant. "Home," she whispered, the word hanging in the air like a ghost. Marcus nodded, knowing that home for her was a world he could never know. "I'm sorry for what happened to your people." She turned to him, her eyes shimmering. "You saved me." He smiled, trying to lighten the mood. "Just doing what I had to do." "Not many would do what you did," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "You gave your blood to save a stranger." Her words echoed in Marcus's mind, reminding him of their bond. It was more than just a simple act of kindness. It felt like a connection that transcended their differences. As their friendship grew, so did their understanding of each other's worlds. Saranthea taught Marcus about her species, the Lineae, how they lived in harmony with nature, their deep connection to the universe, and their psychic abilities. She explained that their emotions could be shared, creating a bond of trust that was rare among her kind. "I can feel your emotions, Marcus," she confessed one day, her voice barely above a whisper. "It is comforting." He looked at her, surprised. "You can feel what I feel." "Like a thread connecting us," she replied, her gaze steady. "You are kind, brave, but also afraid." He frowned, taken aback. "Afraid? Of what?" "Of the unknown," she said simply. "You worry about what comes next." Marcus sighed, realizing how true her words were. The future was uncertain, and as much as he wanted to protect her, he didn't know what threats they might face together. Their conversations continued, growing deeper and more meaningful. But there were still many questions left unanswered. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that their connection had changed him in ways he didn't understand. Sometimes he felt the strange sensation of memories that weren't his own. Visions of Cerinthia's world, her life, and her people. One night, as they gazed out at the stars, Marcus decided to ask about the visions. I keep seeing things, your home, your people. It's like I'm experiencing them, but I know I'm not. Cerinthia's expression turned serious. The bond we share is stronger than I expected. Our blood has intertwined us in ways I cannot fully explain. Marcus felt a shiver run down his spine. What does that mean for us? It means we are connected, but it also means danger, she said, her eyes flashing with concern. Those who destroyed my home will come for me. They will sense our bond. Who are they? Marcus asked, leaning closer. A faction called the Kithran, Cerinthia replied, her voice steady but filled with fear. They seek power above all else. They will stop at nothing to capture me, and the child I carry. Marcus's heart raced at her words. Child. What do you mean? Cerinthia's eyes widened, and she placed a hand on her abdomen. The blood you gave me, it has created new life. Our child is a hybrid, part human, and part Lineara. Hybrid. Marcus echoed, feeling a mix of shock and wonder. You're pregnant? Yes, she said, her voice a whisper. It is a miracle, but it also makes us targets. Marcus took a moment to absorb the news. A child, their child, was a symbol of hope and unity between their two species, but it also came with immense danger. We need to protect you. We need a plan. Cerinthia nodded, her gaze fierce. Together, we can face whatever comes, but we must move quickly. As they formulated a plan, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just two individuals from different worlds. They were allies, partners bound by blood and fate. As the stars twinkled outside, a new determination settled within Marcus. He would protect Cerinthia and their unborn child at all costs, no matter the challenge that lay ahead. Together, they would face the unknown, ready to confront the forces that threatened their future. Marcus Kane stood in the control room of the eclipse, staring at the star map projected before him. He felt a whirlwind of emotions, fear, determination, and an overwhelming desire to protect Cerinthia and their unborn child. The ship's systems hummed quietly, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. Helios, he called out, his voice steady. What's the status of our sensors? Operational, Lieutenant, the eye replied. However, the Kithran ships are highly advanced. We may not detect them until they are very close. Marcus clenched his jaw. He had to find a way to keep Cerinthia safe. We need to find a safe location, a place to hide until we can plan our next move. Recommendation. The moon of Voltor 5 is uncharted and remote. Helios suggested. It may provide adequate cover. Good idea, Marcus replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. Set a course for Voltor 5. As the ship changed direction, Marcus walked to the med bay. Cerinthia was sitting up, her delicate features illuminated by the soft light. She looked up at him with those mesmerizing eyes, filled with a mixture of hope and concern. Did you find a safe place? She asked, her voice gentle yet strong. Yes, Marcus replied, sitting beside her. We're heading to the moon of Voltor 5. It's remote and should help us avoid detection. Good, she said, nodding. But we must be ready. The Kithran will not give up easily. Marcus nodded, his resolve strengthening. I won't let them take you, or our child. The journey to Voltor 5 was tense. Marcus kept a close watch on the scanners, aware that any moment could bring danger. As they approached the moon, a small gray sphere filled the view screen. It was rocky and barren, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of Cerinthia's home world. Entering Voltor 5's orbit, Helios announced. Shall I initiate landing procedures? Do it, Marcus ordered, his heart racing. The ship touched down on a flat, open area on the moon's surface. Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over him as he secured the landing. They had made it for now. Once the ship was powered down, Marcus turned to Saranthea. "Let's check the area and make sure it's safe." Saranthea nodded and followed him outside. The air was thin and cold, but Marcus felt a rush of excitement as he stepped onto the moon's surface. The ground was covered in gray dust, and the stars twinkled brightly in the black sky. "This place is beautiful," Saranthea said, her eyes sparkling. Marcus smiled. "It's different, but it has its own kind of charm." As they explored the area, Marcus kept a close watch on the horizon. He wanted to believe they were safe, but the thought of the Kithrin coming after them made his heart race. Suddenly, Saranthea stopped, her expression shifting from curiosity to alarm. "We are not alone," she said, her voice tense. "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, scanning the surroundings. "I can feel them," she replied, closing her eyes as if concentrating. "Their presence is close." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "How close?" "Very close," she said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We need to move." They hurried back to the ship, and Marcus activated the sensors. The readings confirmed Saranthea's fears. A small group of Kithrin ships was approaching. "Helios, how long until they arrive?" Marcus asked, adrenaline surging through him. "Approximately 10 minutes," Helios replied. "They have detected our presence. Prepare the ship for immediate takeoff," Marcus ordered, his heart pounding. Saranthea grabbed his arm, her eyes wide. "We can't just flee. We need to be strategic." Marcus hesitated. "What do you suggest?" "If we launch into the atmosphere, they will follow us. But if we can create a distraction—" Her voice trailed off as she thought. Marcus's mind raced. "We could use the ship's decoy drones. If we launch them while we hide, we can confuse their sensors." "Exactly," Saranthea said, her expression shifting to determination. "Let's do it." They hurried back inside the ship, and Marcus activated the decoy system. The drones shot out into the darkness of space, shimmering like stars as they sped away from the eclipse. "Now we hide," Marcus said, powering down the ship's systems and cloaking it. As the Kithrin ships entered orbit, Marcus and Saranthea waited in tense silence. The distant sounds of engines and the hum of activity outside filled the air. Marcus could feel Saranthea's anxiety as she focused on the Kithrin ships. "Stay close," he whispered, taking her hand. Saranthea looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the fear they both felt. "I trust you, Marcus." With the decoy drones drawing the Kithran's attention, they sat in silence, their hearts pounding in unison. They were on the edge of a precipice, and what came next would shape their fate forever. As the minutes passed, the tension in the air grew thick. Would their plan work, or had they just walked into a trap? Marcus held his breath, willing the stars to align in their favor. Together, they were ready to face whatever came next. Silence enveloped the eclipse as Marcus Kane and Saranthea waited in the dimly lit control room. The tension hung in the air, thick enough to cut. Outside, the Kithrin ships were close, their dark silhouettes hovering ominously against the backdrop of stars. Marcus could feel the thrum of Saranthea's anxiety through their bond. Her hand trembled slightly in his, and he squeezed it reassuringly. "Stay focused. We can do this," he whispered, trying to instill confidence in her. The ship's systems beeped softly as Helios monitored the incoming Kithrin vessels. "Lieutenant Kane, the enemy ships are scanning the area. They are searching for us." "Hold position," Marcus commanded, trying to keep his voice steady despite the rising pressure in his chest. He glanced at Saranthea, whose eyes were fixed on the control panel, her face a mask of determination. "They are intelligent," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "They will not give up easily." Marcus nodded, acutely aware of the stakes. "We need to keep them off our trail. Can you sense their intentions?" Saranthea closed her eyes, concentrating. "They are searching for life signs, looking for us specifically. If we stay hidden, They will not find us. The minutes dragged on as they waited, the tension building with each passing second. Marcus focused on the scanner readings, watching the Kithran ships draw closer. He felt the weight of their fate resting on his shoulders. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the ship. "Lieutenant, they have detected the decoys," Helios announced. "The Kithran are moving towards them." Marcus exhaled a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Good. That buys us some time." But Cerinthia's expression darkened. "It won't be enough. They will realize their mistake soon. Then we need to prepare for a counterattack," Marcus said, adrenaline surging through him. "Helios, can we activate the ship's shields and weapons?" "Shields are functional, but weapons are in standby mode. We need time to power them up," Helios replied. "Let's do it," Marcus ordered, his heart racing. "Every second counts." Cerinthia's hand tightened around his. "If they come for us, we must be ready to defend ourselves." Outside, the decoys exploded in brilliant bursts of light, creating a dazzling distraction. The Kithran ships were drawn to the spectacle, their attention momentarily diverted. "Now's our chance," Marcus said, his voice firm. "Helios, raise the shields and prepare to engage." "Shields are up, weapons powering," Helios confirmed. As the Kithran vessels split to investigate the decoys, Marcus felt a surge of hope. They might just pull this off. But as he watched the enemy ships move away, a new alarm blared, signaling an incoming threat. "Lieutenant, we have a Kithran ship approaching rapidly," Helios warned. "They have detected our energy signatures." Marcus swore under his breath. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The Eclipse shook as Marcus hit the thrusters, sending the ship veering to the side just as a blast of energy shot past them. The force rattled the control panel, and warning lights flashed in response. "Shields holding at 75%, Helios reported, "but they are recharging their weapons." Cerinthia's eyes widened. "We must act quickly. If they fire again, the shields will not withstand the next attack." Marcus nodded, his heart pounding. "Helios, can we target their ship's engines?" "Targeting now," Helios replied. With a steady hand, Marcus aimed the ship's weapons at the approaching Kithran vessel. He felt the weight of responsibility press down on him. If they failed, it wouldn't just be his life at stake. It would be Cerinthia's and their child's as well. "Ready on your mark, Lieutenant," Helios said. "Now," Marcus shouted, firing at the enemy ship. The energy blast hit its mark, striking the Kithran ship's engines. It shuddered violently, and a plume of fire erupted from the damaged section. The enemy ship began to spiral out of control, drifting away into the darkness of space. "Direct hit," Helios confirmed. "The enemy ship is incapacitated." Cerinthia gasped, her eyes wide with shock. "We did it." "Not yet," Marcus said, his voice steady but urgent. "There are still more ships out there." As if on cue, 2 more Kithran vessels turned toward them, their weapons charging ominously. Marcus quickly shifted the ship's course, dodging another incoming blast. "Helios, how many are there?" he asked, sweat beading on his forehead. 3 remaining Kithran ships are on an intercept course," Helios replied. "Can we make it to the moon's surface?" Marcus asked, weighing their options. "It is risky, but it may provide temporary cover," Helios responded. "Then let's do it," Marcus decided, his jaw set. "We'll lead them away from the ship, and then make a break for it." As they descended toward the surface, Marcus maneuvered the Eclipse skillfully, weaving through incoming fire. Thea watched with a mix of admiration and anxiety. "You're incredible," she breathed. "We're in this together," Marcus replied, determination in his eyes. "We'll find a way to escape." With one final burst of speed, Marcus guided the ship toward the moon's surface, the dark terrain rushing up to meet them. They had to survive. They had to protect their future. As the ship touched down, and the Kithran vessels loomed overhead, Marcus and Cerinthia braced for whatever came next, ready to fight for their lives and their child. The Eclipse landed on the rocky surface of Voltor 5 with a shudder, its systems barely holding up under the strain. Marcus Kane quickly turned off the engines, casting a glance at Saranthea. Her face was pale, but her resolve remained strong. "We can't stay here for long," he said, trying to sound calm. "We need to find a way to hide the ship." Saranthea nodded, her eyes scanning the surrounding landscape. "There are caves nearby. They may provide cover." Marcus grabbed his gear and nodded. "Let's move quickly." They exited the ship, the chill of the moon's atmosphere biting at their skin. The night sky was clear, revealing a sea of stars above them. But it also meant the Kithran ships would have no trouble locating them if they didn't hurry. "Stay close to me," Marcus instructed as they made their way toward the caves Saranthea had mentioned. The ground was uneven, and the shadows stretched long and dark. He could hear the faint hum of Kithran engines in the distance, a reminder that they were not safe yet. As they reached the mouth of a cave, Marcus took a deep breath and stepped inside, guiding Saranthea behind him. The cave was cool and dark, and he activated his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing rough walls and uneven ground. "Do you think they'll find us here?" Saranthea asked, her voice echoing softly in the enclosed space. Marcus shook his head, though he wasn't entirely sure. "If we're quiet and keep the ship's systems off, we should be fine." They moved deeper into the cave, finding a small alcove where they could rest. Marcus leaned against the cool stone, glancing at Saranthea. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," she replied, though her voice was strained. "But we need to talk about what happens next." Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. "I know. We can't stay on this moon forever. We need to find a way to get you to safety." "Back to my people," she said, her eyes brightening. "If I can reach them, they can help us." "Do you have any way to contact them?" Marcus asked, his mind racing. Saranthea shook her head. "Not without the proper technology. But I can feel their presence. If we can get close enough, I might be able to reach out." Marcus considered this. "Then we need to find a way off this moon and back to a star system where we can get a signal." Suddenly, the cave trembled slightly. Both of them froze, the sound of distant engines growing louder. The Kithran ships were getting closer. "They're searching," Saranthea whispered, her face pale. "We need to stay quiet." Marcus nodded, but his heart raced. He couldn't let fear take over. "We'll wait for them to pass, then make our move." Minutes felt like hours as they sat in silence, straining to hear the Kithran ships outside. The engines roared above them, and Marcus could only hope they wouldn't think to search the cave. Finally, the noise began to fade. Saranthea's eyes were wide with worry. "Do you think they're gone?" Marcus listened intently, his heart racing. "I think so, but let's give it a few more minutes." After what felt like an eternity, the sounds of the ships disappeared completely. "Okay, let's move," Marcus said, rising to his feet. They crept out of the cave, looking around cautiously. The moon's surface was quiet, but Marcus could still feel the tension in the air. "We need to find a higher vantage point," he said, scanning the area for a way to see what was happening above. Saranthea pointed to a nearby ridge. "Over there. We can climb up and see if the Kithran are still searching." Together, they moved toward the ridge, careful not to make any noise. The climb was steep, but they managed to reach the top without attracting attention. As they crested the ridge, Marcus surveyed the landscape. In the distance, he could see the Kithran ships patrolling in a tight formation. They were searching systematically, and it looked like they had split into two groups. "They're not giving up," he murmured. "No, they won't," Saranthea replied, her voice laced with worry. "We need to act quickly." Marcus thought for a moment. "If we can get to a nearby communications tower, we might be able to send a signal to your people." "Where is it?" Saranthea asked, her eyes searching the horizon. "There's a settlement on the other side of this ridge," Marcus said, pointing to a faint outline in the distance. "If it has a tower, we could use it to reach out." "Then we must go now," Saranthia urged, determination in her voice. They quickly descended the ridge, making their way toward the settlement. The terrain was rough, but Marcus kept his pace steady. The need to protect Saranthia and their unborn child fueled his determination. As they approached the settlement, they noticed it was eerily quiet. The buildings were in disrepair, and debris littered the ground. It looked like a place once vibrant with life, but now abandoned. "Stay alert," Marcus warned, scanning the area for any signs of danger. Saranthia nodded, her senses heightened. "I can feel a presence, but it's faint. It's not Kithran." As they entered the settlement, they found an old communications tower standing tall but damaged. "There!" Marcus exclaimed, pointing to the tower. "We need to get up there." They moved quickly, climbing the stairs to the top of the tower. The view was expansive, the barren landscape stretching out before them. The distant Kithran ships were still patrolling, but they seemed focused on other areas. "Can you reach your people from here?" Marcus asked, glancing at Saranthia. "I'll try," she replied, stepping to the control panel. As she worked, Marcus kept watch, his heart racing. He knew time was running out. They had to act before the Kithran found them again. "I'm connecting now," Saranthia said, her fingers moving deftly over the controls. "But I need to focus." "Take your time," he reassured her. "I've got your back." As he watched her, Marcus felt a mix of hope and fear. They were on the brink of something significant. If only they could make contact, everything could change. Together, they stood at the edge of destiny, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As Saranthia worked at the damaged control panel of the communications tower, Marcus Kane stood vigilant, scanning the horizon for any sign of danger. The tension in the air was palpable, every sound amplified in the quiet of the abandoned settlement. The distant hum of Kithran ships reminded him that they were still very much in peril. Come on," Marcus muttered under his breath, willing Saranthia to make the connection. "I'm trying," she replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The equipment is old and damaged, but if I can just— Yes, I think I'm getting a signal." Marcus's heart raced at her words. "Good. Reach out to your people. Let them know we need help." Saranthia's fingers danced over the control panel, the screen flickering with static before revealing a series of symbols. "I can sense their presence," she said, her voice steadying. "But I need to focus. I need them to hear me." With her eyes closed, Saranthia began to speak, her voice soft but firm. "This is Saranthia of the Lilithan. I am in distress and require assistance. I have vital information regarding the Kithran threat. Please respond." Marcus watched her, pride swelling in his chest. He knew how much this meant to her, and he felt the bond between them strengthen with each word she spoke. He silently prayed for a response, knowing their lives depended on it. The screen flickered again, and a voice crackled through the static. "Saranthia, we hear you." Finally, Marcus exclaimed, relief washing over him. Saranthia's eyes flew open, and a spark of hope ignited within her. "I need your help. The Kithran are searching for us. We cannot hold out much longer." "Coordinates received," the voice said. "We are dispatching the ship to your location. Stay hidden and wait for us." "Thank you. We'll be ready," Saranthia replied, her face lighting up with hope. As the connection faded, Marcus felt a rush of optimism. "They're coming for us," he said, trying to contain his excitement. "We just need to hold on a little longer." Saranthia smiled at him, and in that moment, everything felt possible. "But we must be careful. The Kithran will not give up easily." "Right," Marcus said, his expression turning serious again. "Let's head back to the ship and prepare for their arrival. We need to be ready for anything." They hurried down the stairs of the tower, moving swiftly but cautiously. The quiet of the settlement felt eerie, but they had no time to waste. As they approached the eclipse, Marcus kept a lookout for any signs of the Kithran. Once inside, they activated the ship's systems, preparing for takeoff. Helios, any updates on Kithran activity? Marcus asked, his heart pounding. Scanning, Helios replied. The Kithran ships are still patrolling, but have not approached this location. You have a brief window to prepare. Good, let's keep it that way, Marcus said. He began running through the pre-flight checklist, ensuring everything was ready for a quick escape. Scifi joined him, her focus unwavering. We need to set the ship to cloak mode as soon as we take off. They can't see us if we're hidden. Agreed, Marcus said. We'll get to a safe distance and then figure out our next move. They worked together, moving quickly through their tasks. With each passing second, the anticipation grew. Marcus could feel the weight of the moment, and he knew they were on the brink of something crucial. Helios, how long until the ship arrives? Marcus asked as he secured the final strap of his gear. Estimated time of arrival is approximately 15 minutes, Helios reported. Perfect, Marcus said, his mind racing with plans. Let's make sure we're ready to launch the moment we see them. Outside, the sound of Kithran engines echoed in the distance, a reminder of the imminent threat. Marcus took a deep breath, pushing aside the fear that crept into his mind. They had to believe they would make it out alive. Keep an eye on the scanners, he instructed Scifi, who nodded, her expression serious. Suddenly, an alert sounded. Lieutenant Kane, multiple Kithran ships are changing course toward your location, Helios announced. Marcus's heart dropped. How many? 3 ships, approaching rapidly, Helios replied. Ready the cloaking system, Marcus shouted, adrenaline pumping through his veins. Scifi's eyes widened. They found us. Not yet, Marcus said, determination flaring in his chest. We're going to make it. He quickly initiated the cloaking system, feeling a rush of relief as the ship's systems hummed to life. The eclipse shimmered and blended with the surrounding environment, becoming nearly invisible. They can't see us now, Scifi said, her voice steadying. Good, Marcus said, gripping the controls tightly. We'll wait for the right moment to launch. As the Kithran ships approached, their search patterns growing more frantic, Marcus's heart raced. He watched the scanners, praying for their allies to arrive in time. The tension was palpable, the seconds stretching out like hours. Then, in the distance, a blip appeared on the sensors. Helios, is that our ship? Affirmative, Helios confirmed. The ship is approaching rapidly. Get ready to launch, Marcus commanded, his heart pounding. Scifi's grip tightened on her seat as she watched the Kithran ships come closer. We can't let them see us. Trust me, Marcus replied, adrenaline surging. We'll take off just before they can lock onto us. The Kithran ships began to circle the area, their sensors scanning for any sign of the eclipse. Marcus felt the pressure mounting, every heartbeat echoing in his ears. Now, he shouted as the Allied ship drew near. He engaged the thrusters, and the eclipse shot forward, cloaked but moving fast. The Kithran ships were caught off guard, their weapons firing into empty space. As the eclipse shot away, Marcus glanced back at the Kithran ships, now desperately trying to regroup. We did it, he shouted, a mix of exhilaration and relief flooding through him. Scifi laughed, her face lighting up with joy. We're free. They watched as their allies' ship maneuvered into position, ready to escort them away from danger. The fear that had gripped them began to fade, replaced by a sense of hope and determination. As they left the moon behind, Marcus and Scifi knew they had survived against all odds. They were heading into the unknown, but together, they would face whatever came next. Together, they would build a future.